Okay, turn to 1612. Just had the political phase, and the big rebel still remains closed, but Chaos Stalks Prax has been drawn. So each player has drawn a Chaos counter and has placed them. Now the Sables drew, if I can pan over to here, drew Bruise. They placed a Bruise unit in here with this area, including a High Llama herd. So the High Llamas are going to have to drive those Bruise off, otherwise this herd's going to be reduced. We then had the High Llamas. They drew some Scorpion Men, which they placed with the Morocamph herd here. So the Scorpion Men would join battle with the Morocamph here. That'd be a sort of mini battle. And finally, the Morocamph drew the Chaos Herd, which is here. And the Chaos Herd travels 4 areas, 1, 2, 3, 4, placing grazed counters in each of these areas. So it looks like people are ganging a little bit up on the High Llamas here. Okay, so I'm going to resolve then and then move on to the rest of the phase. So just show you the resolution of the Chaos Stalked Prax condition card that came out. So we can see over here that the High Llamas did not manage to drive the Bruise off, so the Bruise have destroyed half a herd, making a healthy herd to a reduced herd. Over here it was even worse than the Morocamph though. The Scorpion Men were here. They forced the Morocamph clan to retreat, leaving them in the area alone with a healthy herd, which they've then now taken. That's gone off. And we see that when we come to the resolve grazing phase, these graze counters will have an effect. Now, because it's going to be a winter phase, they should be okay, but we will see. So in the independence phase, the High Llamas had already previously allied the Nuclear Renegades, so they paid 1 power to keep that alliance going. And the tribes and independent tribes and magic societies have changed as they do each independent phase. So now we've got available the Pavis Survivors, Sunset Society, the Unicorn Maidens, the Wind Singers again, the Men and a Half, and the Baboon Troop. Okay, moving on to the winter turn. End of the winter phase. I can see what's been going on here. The Sables have been pretty much left alone by the rest of the crew. They've put their herds together up in this area here, in the good place, and they've been roaming around central Prax, raiding, and you can see they've actually taken, in a couple of raids, they've taken, stolen a whole healthy Impala herd there, and they've been using their protectress as well to look after the herd while they've been raiding. They rigged it a bit when they tried to raid the bisons as well, and they've lost a valuable clan. Okay, they're looking very weak at the moment. The Sables can do only the second turn. Gonna have to be careful. The benefit of the weakness is no one else is really paying them a lot of attention. We come down to see what's going down here. Well, the Morocamph are being blocked from entering the area they really like by the High Llamas. So there's been a bit of going back and forth here. One of the problems with these mobile nomadic warfare is it's very hard to bring your enemy to bear. So we've had a bit of jumping in and out of these areas here, no one wanting to commit themselves to a decisive battle. The High Llamas had a bit of success early on, but nothing's really happened there. So the Morocamph are a little bit frustrated at the moment. The High Llamas are holding their ground. They really wanted to expand their herds, because their herds are quite reduced at the moment, but they've got no further than just getting this additional reduced herd here. So pretty much that's what's happened this turn. There's been a few other little things. We've had we had Waha's Holy Day. Now it's only the Morocamph, because they had Waha's blessing last turn, that they didn't have to sacrifice any herds during their coal herd phase. They sacrificed a reduced herd to Waha. No one else did. So they've drawn out various banes. So probably the worst result possible for the High Llamas is Waha's cursed them with a barren herd. So they're not going to reduce. They're going to reduce only half the number of herds in the herd growth phase later on. The Morocamph did, and they pulled out peaceful cuts. I'm going to be pleased with that. They won't have to sacrifice any. Just move a whiskey glass out of the way there. And over here, the Sables brought out Waha's anger, so he took some power from them. Okay, well I think they could probably quite happy live with that. Put the empty glass of Lefroy back there. Okay, I'll pour another one in a moment. Move on to winter fertile phase. Okay, just realised I forgot to mention that last turn the High Llamas actually completed their adventure and were rewarded with a treasure. So they have now got Tada's cloak. Okay, just about to start the tribal action phase in the winter fertile phase. We can see in terms of herd growth, we can see that the High Llamas haven't had much because they've picked up Waha's bane of barren herd. The others have done reasonably well. I mean, definitely the Murrah camp are doing very well over here, and the Sables, a lot more units there. When it came to clan growth, again the Murrah camp did very well. I think they've got 2 new clans out, which allow them to sort of fill this area in here, looking quite threatening. I believe the Sables, if I remember rightly, they produced 1, and the High Llamas, because they're normally slower to reproduce, produced none. Okay, so we're about to set in the next tribal action phase. End of the winter fertile phase, as we can see, just moving into early summer. What's happened this turn? Well, the Sables have sort of consolidated their area. They've taken their healthy Impala herd that they managed to raid back to this area here. They've also managed to ally the Men and a Half up there, which is going to be useful for them. Over here, well, the Murrah camp, who had that excellent increase in the number of clans, have really put pressure on the High Llamas, and the High Llamas have sort of started to give way a bit. They did manage to raid the High Llamas from the hills with sufficient force to take a reduced herd. They've also managed to ally the Pavis survivors there. So these are really sort of jockeying for position down here. And that's pretty much what's happened. I think after the initial last turn it was very, very aggressive. I think there's a bit of a calmness over the game at the moment. You can't really, in this sort of nomadic landscape and lifestyle, really sustain that intensity of activity all the time. So we will see what the next turn or 2 brings. End of the early summer phase, and we can see that the Sables have used up a lot of the grazing in the good place, so they've moved out into sort of central Prax. They've also undertaken a raid on the Bison tribe here and got reduced herd there. Good for them. We can see that looks like the High Llamas sort of called it quits. They can't compete with the Juggernaut, which is the Murrah camp at the moment. We see the Murrah camp are filled in this area here, and the High Llamas have moved back, so they're not in direct competition with them. We've sort of got a bit of a front line here between the 2 tribes. We did see the High Llamas use their gift from Aretha, and we can see an elemental placed here, which means all the herds in that area had to move. Did that very cleverly on the last phase of the turn, so it means this is actually going to be overstacked during the grazing phase as they flee the earth tremors that the elemental causes. So that's going to lose, when those healthy herds are going to be reduced because they're going to be overstacked. We've also had the Sables have started an adventure. They've got Templar Thed this time. Where they've gone? I think they're the Obscure Plinth. If we have a look, yeah, they've started an adventure at the Obscure Plinth. Again, I thought I'm probably a bit rash doing this now, because we see the first problem we've got to overcome is bruise, and that's rolling dice, and you've got to sacrifice power. Now the Sables are flying close to the wind with their power at the moment. They do have 3 remaining, but their big spirit, which is Sunhawk at the moment, requires 2 power to maintain that alliance. So they can only actually sacrifice one next turn, which is probably not going to be enough. And well, we'll see how that pans out. Pretty much everything else is moving along. Anything else I've forgotten? I don't think so. That's it. Okay, last phase of the turn coming up. End of the late summer. Pretty tame turn all round really. Mainly shuffling around. The llamas are spreading out, trying to take as much space as possible for status conditions. The same with the sables. And the Morocamp. So not really a lot happened, mainly shuffling around, a few bits and pieces. The Templar fled, one power sacrifice, all they could afford really, and a warrior was slain because no runes were rolled. Okay, so we'll tot up the status and we're ready for the next year's play. Okay, status. The High Llamas still leading, they have 10. We have the Sables have made a lot of progress this turn. Pretty much been left alone to their own devices, and they've got quite a few herds on 9, and the Morocamp are still behind with 6. Although if you look at the board position from afar, the Morocamp definitely look like they're in a stronger position. Okay, next turn we have the power phase, which is going to top everybody up, which should then give the High Llamas enough power to send one of their warriors to the Devil's Marsh to try and get a new Khan. That would definitely help them out. The Sables, well, they're sort of keeping a low profile at the moment. Some successful raiding has really increased the number of herds they have, so they'll be able to use those for sacrifice and pay various costs. Yeah, but they're really low on tribes. Okay, having only three clans, and down here we've got the Khan and men and a half. So they'll probably be in the market for another independent, I would have thought, next turn, so they can keep up with things. Be interesting to see. Now the Morocamp have considered crossing the river valleys so they can raid the isolated herds in the waste, but that has an impact on the lunar attitude. If we look at the lunar attitude track, we can see the Sables are still allied. We can see still hostile the High Llamas, and we can see the Morocamp's attitude has declined a bit as well. The reason that's moved down is that at various stages during the turn they had 5 or more units in one area. Now the Lunars take a very dim view of that sort of massing of tribal forces, so their attitude declines, but they needed that to force the High Llamas to retreat, which they did. And we see the High Llamas have really sort of abandoned this area and now moving up the River of Cradles. Have to be a bit careful getting too close to the Lunars, because the Lunars are hostile to them and will attack them if they get within range. I think the High Llama would really like to send a couple of units across here as well, across the River of Cradles, to try and pick on some of these units down here. But that would, any attempt to do that would move them into at war, and that's you just don't want to go there. And they're not sufficiently wealthy enough to give tribute to the Lunars to try and increase their attitude at the moment, so they're going to have to bide their time. It's always a long route round the top, of course, you can go through the mountains, but it takes a little while. So, there we go, next turn we will see, hopefully, the Templar Fed move on. Okay, well, I have a moon on complete, I've only got one warrior left there. Hopefully we'll see the High Llamas regain their Khan at some point by sending their warriors. I think they've got a couple of warriors, yeah, they've got 2 warriors available to the Devil's Marsh. Be interesting to see what the Sables do. They're sort of keeping this force in central Prax here to raid. There's still some bison to raid here, so they might go for that. And we will see. There we go. End of turn 2.